Hey everyone, welcome to Grit Machine DNA, where we introduce you to people who are doing incredible things every day. Today I'm blessed to introduce you to my wife, my best friend and my backbone, Samanda Morales. Samanda, welcome to Grit Machine DNA.
Good morning, thank you.
It is awesome to finally do this with you. We're going to dive right in, folks, and just start the conversation. Samanda, who is Samanda Morales?
I had to take a little time to think about that. I am loved by a Heavenly Father. I am strong, I am courageous, I am blessed, and I am a woman of integrity.
I love that answer, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about your past. Where were you born? Where were you raised, etc.?
I was born and raised in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and I was raised by my father. My parents were divorced before I could even remember. So I was partly raised by my father during the week, and on weekends I will visit my mother.
When did you arrive to the United States?
When I was 14, 1991.
What was that like?
Horrible. Scary, given that I actually didn't want to come. My mother was already living here, but I'm my daddy's little girl. I didn't want to leave my father. But the desire to see my mother after so many years, I came, but it was horrible. It was cold. We arrived in November 1991. It was cold, dark, and we didn't know anyone and didn't even know how to say hello in English. So.
And when did you arrive? Where?
New York, LaGuardia Airport. It was my sister and I. We traveled with those manila folders that they gave you with your paperwork, and the flight attendant made sure that my sister and I got off the plane safely. And I met my stepfather, Reynaldo, and my mother at the New York airport.
Great. And where did you first live when you arrived?
Malden,
Massachusetts.
I went to Malden High School.
Malden High School grad. That's awesome. So here is the journey of an immigrant who came here to essentially live with your mother. We're going to fast forward a bit. So I want to get to some interesting stuff about what you're doing. But early on, what would you say defined your life early on? Not now. Early on, when you were growing up, high school, college, etc. What defined your life? What was it like?
I had this question asked when I was doing a women's retreat a few years ago. And thinking back, it was actually very difficult times that defined my life and moments. Definitely the divorce that my parents went through. It wasn't a happy relationship. When my mother left Dominican Republic to live in the United States, and I didn't see my mother for years. I was actually around 8 when she left, and then my father was always working, so we basically had someone that was watching us at home. So that the pain of that separation actually gave me an inner strength that I didn't realize till I was already older. That the inner strength that I developed during those times was actually very powerful. And then coming to the United States, and then going through the hurtful separation of leaving my father to come live with my mother. It was actually another experience that I went through that helped me to be independent, strong, and courageous.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about some fun stuff. What was the diet like? I assume in Dominican Republic or República Dominicana, you grew up eating what? Sancocho, arroz. What was the diet like when you were a kid in Dominican Republic and then when you arrived in the United States?
I didn't know what junk food was. There was not junk food.
Well, define junk food.
French fries, chips, anything that came in a box. That's what I would define as a junk food. I grew up eating things that were freshly made. So
your father, I just want to give context to the listeners or the viewers. Your father every day was getting food for you fresh every day.
Yes. So I lived during the time where the energy industry in Dominican Republic was not stable. So we didn't have electricity like for 5 to 6 hours at a time. So you can refrigerate food, and canned goods was not something that Dominicans ate during that time, in my 1980s. So every day my dad was buying meats, and that's what we ate: rice, beans, meats, and salad, because you always needed some kind of greens.
Yeah, and to give context again, there was a butcher shop where meat was sold. There
Right next door.
Yeah, a carniceria. There was a fish shop if you wanted to go get fish. And there viandas, which are essentially Caribbean goods like potatoes, ñame, plátano, yautía. So those things your father was buying daily. How about eggs?
So he was buying eggs, but actually the fish, he didn't buy it from a fish market. So every time we went to visit my grandfather in Barahona Polo, which is what it used to be, almost 5 hours away from the capital because there weren't any highways. So along the way, there were street vendors that will sell the fish and any kind of yams or fruits. That's when my dad bought all those products.
Very cool. All right, so you get to the United States, and you said junk food. So what did you start eating?
Cereal. I had never had cereal. Chips. Hot Pockets, because there was no freshly made food at home. Bagels. That's not something that I grew up eating. And hot dogs.
Excellent. We're going to leave the conversation about bad dietary habits alone for now. We're going to keep going. So you had an interesting, when I first met you, you were very sheltered. Can you talk about what that culture from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, what I call the traditional culture, what was that like as a woman?
So women were not, young girls were not allowed to, by their parents, to go wander around the neighborhood. You were home, you went to school, and if you went anywhere, you went with in this case, with my father. So I didn't stay after school hanging out with friends. There was only one friend that we were allowed to hang out with. It was someone across the street where my father knew their parents, and he felt comfortable with us going to her house. But that was the environment that I grew up in, that women were home and you can go wander by yourself.
Yeah, you couldn't go out, and unless you were older than 18, you were under supervision pretty much all day.
Yes.
That's what I remember for sure. So fast forward, you get to the United States, and what was life like?
So my stepfather and my mother were really careful of who we were hanging out with and where we went. I think that strict household carried over with my stepfather. So again, I just went to school and back home to study, and I spent most of my days in my room listening to music and learning English as fast as possible.
Yeah, and this was just, again, context. This is all 1990s, just for the folks that are listening or watching. So Samanda, you then went to Salem State when it was a college. Mm-hmm. What led you to go to college? Why was that important?
My father always instilled education, and I knew that a higher education was something that I wanted to do, and it's something that my father always promoted at home. Their process I wasn't familiar with, so I relied heavily on my student guidance counselor. He guided me through SATs, I don't know what that was, all those college applications. So I applied to two different ones, Northeastern and Salem State College, and I was accepted to both. But he recommended that I went to Salem State. It was a smaller college, and it was closer to home.
And the best part of that story is that not only did you graduate with honors, but years later you are now a board of trustees at the university.
I know. Yes.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
What an incredible immigrant story. So I want to transition to your career, but before we do that, Samanda, who were the most influential people in your life from your high school, college days at the time, and why?
I paused because, as you know, I don't get influenced by people. I'm influenced by experiences. And every time I think back and who were the people that are involved during those years, I'm a very independent, so I did a lot of things on my own.
Yeah.
So I would say I was shaped and influenced by experiences. I'm someone that watches what people do and learns from those that are making mistakes for me what to avoid. And I watch those that were successful and then, okay, what can I imitate from that? So I relied a lot of professors, and that would be during my high school and my college years, people that influenced me. I do want to say that when you and I started going out, that was my junior in college.
Yeah.
You influenced me more than, we both thought. You challenged the way I was thinking and studying things that challenged my thinking and the way I view things, but also how to carry myself off campus, how to dress and how to look at people in the eye and how to make sure that you are well-spoken and you articulate your point clear and concise in a concise manner. So that is something that I definitely watched you doing, and I learned from that.
That's cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. The funny part about this podcast is that my wife and I have continued to learn together. And at the time when we were in college, I was learning, as I speak about in my book, American Familia, I was learning. And I was learning really important lessons in college about soft skills, how to behave in certain environments. If you're with his family, largely Hispanic, this is what how you hang out. But when you're a professional setting, you have to sort of act in a certain way, professional, etc. Look people in the eye, shake their hands, speak concisely, speak clearly. Don't speak with an accent. Those are things that I was really keenly learning at the time, and I remember sharing some of those lessons with Samanda at the time. Not because we were not smart, but rather because that's how we thought, especially I thought, that's sort of how we would progress professionally through our career and through life, etc. So I appreciate you sharing that. I never consciously thought about it, but there were things that I was learning and that I was sort of trying to share.
But that, and the reason why I wanted to share that is because, and I share this with all the my friends and all the girlfriends that I have, is that before you and I got married, we were friends.
Yeah.
We were partners, and we were people that supported each other and wanted to make each other better.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to point that out, because I saw you as someone that deeply cared about me, and I trusted you and your judgment. And we both had the desire of wanting to do better, and I think it's partly because of how we grew up and and where we came from, and we both share that strong desire.
Yeah, absolutely. We came from very, very modest means, and we're going to talk about financial coaching and financial empowerment because that's part of who we are. We needed to learn how to do better for ourselves. We believe deeply in personal responsibility and self-reliance and self-agency, deeply. And those are things that, because of the way we grew up, very modest, our families bringing us to the United States to do better, we embrace that and we live it, and we still live it every day. And we've done that as a couple. So let's pivot to that a bit, Samanda. So what do you do professionally?
I empower people to achieve their goals.
You empower people to achieve their goals. So some people call you a financial coach. Some people call you a financial health advisor. What do you do?
So as soon as I graduated from college, or when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to study business administration. Like, business is something that I just didn't think about it. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And after graduating from college, I went to work for one of the biggest companies in the S&P 500 companies in financial services, mutual funds and pension plans, 401k plans, and all those terms that we didn't grow up knowing, but learned by working in the industry for so many years. So after 24 years, I decided to pursue my true passion, which is to empower people. And I am a financial coach, financial health coach, financial consultant, but it's to empower people with the education, resources, and tools to eventually build financial wealth.
So I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure people have a lot of questions. So what does that mean? There are financial advisors out there, there's wealth managers out there, there's financial literacy experts. Are you that?
No.
So what are you?
So in 2020, I had, when you have one of those aha moments?
I call them epiphanies or aha moments.
It's when you look back and you realize there were certain things that you wish you knew growing up, but also understanding when you started working your real job. And one of those things was, how do I manage my finances? It's not about retirement savings, only about retirement savings. It's not only how to maintain a high credit score. It's not only how to save and put money in the bank, but how do I create a picture and a complete plan and a roadmap of where I am today and where I want to be. And financial advisors provide a roadmap for retirement, estate planning, retirement savings. Then you have financial literacy experts that teach you what's a bank, what are bank accounts, savings, with checking accounts, how to reconcile your checking account, what kind of loans you have available. But there isn't anything available that puts it all together. And how do you build the financial foundation, especially for those people that don't know how to budget, don't know how to manage money, but don't even have what I call financial behavior to use money as a tool to achieve goals. Because money, it's not something that you work for. It's something that you use to achieve the goals that you have for you, but also for your family.
Yeah. So basically, the old adage, you shouldn't live to work. You should work to live. Something like that, right? But in this case, with money.
Exactly. And when you live to make money, how do you find happiness? How do you find peace of mind? How do you know that you have achieved something that you're working for or toward? Yeah. And that's what I strongly believe, that when you set goals and then you use money as a vehicle to achieve those goals, it gives you a sense of achievement, a peace of mind that, okay, I have achieved something that I have set for myself and my family. And I look at savings in a completely different way now. A lot of people spend their entire lifetime, I gotta save. And then, like, when do you know when to stop saving?
Yeah.
So I talk about those things with my clients. First, let's set a savings goal and what that means and when you can stop saving and then invest so you can grow your money at a higher percentage so you can start building wealth, which is basically means many things to different people. But for me, wealth is owning more than what you owe. And most of us...
You mean from a financial perspective?
From a financial perspective,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't know how technical you want to get into it in here, but it's basically you want to have more assets than liability.
Yeah.
Because when you have more liabilities than assets, then you're going to spend most of your days and months paying back those liabilities.
Yeah.
So you would definitely want to own more than what you own.
Yeah.
That's what
How did you learn to do this?
How did you learn how to sing?
I learned how to sing at church. I asked
No,
you,
no, it's
well,
not.
hold on. I ask you this question. Let me give folks context. I ask you this question because typically you don't hear many women talking about finances. The good news is that women are now taking a lot more share of the financial industry, and that's awesome. But in terms of financial empowerment, I typically don't see women having this conversation with people. So how did you learn how to do this?
I think it was a seed that my dad planted. I don't think he knowingly was doing that, but I watched, and this is what I said earlier, I learned by watching people. And I watched my dad being very frugal and very intentional with how he used money.
He still is.
He still is. And that is something that he engraved in me. I watched him do those things.
Yeah.
How to spend your money, where to spend it, how not to spend on things that you don't need. And I think it's probably growing up in that environment when you only spend on the things that you truly needed, not on the things that you wanted, because of the limited resources that you had. So I used that through my teenage years and through my my adult years. When I started working at 17, my first part-time job, I started saving it. I didn't spend money. I had 2 pairs of shoes, one black and one brown, and then that's all I needed.
Needs versus wants. Something that's ingrained in me is needs versus wants. David, do you need that or do you want it? And if you just want it but don't need it, don't buy it.
So I watched my dad being very frugal with his money and very intentional where he spent it and how he spent it. And he has lived a very, peaceful and happy retirement life. And he enjoys his life because he has enough money to do so. And I saw the results. And then I saw the results in myself when I started working, and then I was saving. I was very intentional where I spent my money and how I spent it. And then I saved $6,000 in a matter of, in a year after minimum wage. I worked at TJ Maxx part-time. It's not like I had a desk office job. So I saw the results. And that's when I lived throughout my life the same way, because what you put in, you get back. You get the results.
Yeah, there's no question. Hard work always equals a good outcome, especially if that work is intentionally dedicated to advancing a goal. So I totally agree with that. Samanda, you left 2 large companies to essentially become an entrepreneur. What was that process like? How did you do that? Most people don't ever do that. How did you do it?
God's grace, first of all, His strength. I firmly believe in His word, and His word says that I can do more than I can think or imagine. So I tend not to overthink things before I do them, because then you'll be scared. I just had this strong passion in my heart.
Yeah.
It's when you are tasked with something and you have to go do it. I was tasked with this mission and this passion. And I'm thankful and blessed enough to say that I have been able to do that because of the support that you have provided, not just emotionally, but also financially, for me to be able to go on my own and build something that has never been built. And I just saw from my personal experience and also a professional experience that there is a need in the market that can, if fulfilled, can empower people to do better. And that's what I saw, and I just went for it.
Yeah. So partly you had support, partly you had a partner that encouraged you and still encourages you to do incredible things because you're incredible. But there is also there has to be deep down inside passion, and you talked about it. Passion to pursue, but also passion to embrace risk. Most people don't ever get comfortable embracing risk. Can you talk about that?
If you don't take risks, how do you know that the things that you have in your heart work? Or how do you know that you can actually accomplish it until you take it?
Yeah.
And I think that's going back to the initial conversation that we had a few minutes ago, that going through all the experiences that I went through growing up build that inner strength in me to do a lot of the things that people will say, are you crazy? So what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Why not take the risk? And I am driven very passionately by the needs of others. And you know this, I am someone that if I see someone with a need, I always have the inclination to find a solution for it. And there's a lot of us that are in bondage, how I call it, living paycheck to paycheck and making rash financial decisions or decisions that affects their life because of money.
Yeah.
And money, does not have the power to drive us to do things that affects our lives, but also of those that we care for, our children or our parents. So money's a tool, not something that should drive your life.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, we're going to dive in a little bit here. There's this whole narrative around social justice and equity, etc. What I find interesting, Samanda, is over 2/3 of people live paycheck to paycheck in America. Most people live in deep debt in America. That, to me, has nothing to do with the system. Can you talk about that? Or how would you react to that?
It's our lifestyle. Is the desire for us to have a lifestyle that we cannot afford. And it's by what we see in social media, to your point, and media. If all I'm seeing is people wearing nice clothes, driving nice cars, going on vacation, Aruba,
Nike, Adidas, brand names.
It's a lifestyle that I desire.
Yeah.
So I am going to do anything that I can to support the lifestyle, but most of us cannot afford it.
Yeah.
So we tend to overspend and spend money that we don't have, and get in huge debt. And because of that, we may not have enough money to pay bills, to pay a monthly rent, or to buy healthy foods. So Americans have a financial behavior issue, and it's not something that it's done on purpose. It's just the how we let ourselves influence ourselves with influencers, social media, and what we watch on TV, because we're constantly bombarded with marketing and buy this product, and build this lifestyle that we can, at the end of the day, cannot afford.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's funny. I hear a lot of like the system, and I tell people all the time, look, capitalism has gotten more people out of poverty throughout history of mankind than any other system. It's not the system. It is absolutely our behavior. So yes, we live in a capitalistic environment that encourages us to spend, right? A consumer-driven economy. But we as individuals, you and I grew up very poor. I remember we as individuals, let me finish the thought. We as individuals need to have personal responsibility and the grit to think, time out. Do I need this 300 pair of Nike shoes? Do I need it? The answer is no. I can get a product that's either just as good or better for $60. So we have to step back and become resilient. But what I was going to say, in addition to that, is we have become so accustomed to believing what we hear about the evils of systems that we don't ever step back to say, what can I do? What am I doing wrong? How can I change my behavior? I'll never forget the exercise that Samanda, my wife, sitting right next to me, did with me in 2001. And we started earning we started working less than $25,000 a year, each of us. And this is in the mid to late 90s, which is peanuts. We lived in a 400 square foot studio in Lynn, Massachusetts. I remember my first big paycheck, like a few years later after that, in state government, if you want to call it a big paycheck, I kept telling Samanda, who earned less than me at the time, I said, honey, I have no money. And she sits me down on a spreadsheet. We looked through the dollars I was spending, and I was spending most of my money on going out to lunch every day in Boston and coffee. And that's when this whole thing shook us up to say, we have to change how we live, how we spend, and how we behave financially. And frankly, my perspective is no matter how much money you earn in America, that's what you need to do. You need to put your money to work for you.
You have millionaires that end up broke.
Yep.
You have people living in nice homes and nice neighborhoods, what's called being house broke. Meaning you own this huge, big, nice home,
Yeah.
but you don't have any money at the end of the day on a monthly basis.
We know a lot of people who are cash poor,
Yeah.
right? They make good money, they live in nice homes, but they're living check to check to your point, maintain a lifestyle that financially they hardly can sustain or maintain.
Yeah, so we live in a society where we want things now, and if I want it now, I just use my credit card. So I remember those layaway days where if you wanted something or if you needed something, if you didn't have the money, you can set it aside and pay little by little until you paid it off, and then the product's given to you. I worked in layaway department at TJ Maxx when I started working at 17.
I'm very familiar with layaway. My mother used layaway to buy all our stuff when we were in high school, for sure. Ann and Hope and Zare. Yeah, not pretty.
No, but then now you have 18-year-olds with credit cards. As soon as you're old enough to sign your own name on an application, you can apply for a credit card. And then a lot of young adults are already in debt before they even start working.
Yeah. So how do we change the mindset? I hear a lot of narrative to young people about how someone put you here. This is someone else's fault. It's not your fault. The system's hurting you. How do we change that narrative? Tough
Education.
Question, huh? Education, okay.
Guidance.
Yeah.
And coaching, to be honest.
What's the difference between, sorry, I have to ask this question. What's the difference between financial coaching, and financial literacy?
Financial literacy is, again, providing technical definitions of certain financial tools.
Give me an example.
What's a checking account?
What's a checking account? Okay.
What's a bank?
Yep, okay.
What's a loan? How do you get a loan? Those kind of things.
Okay, so what's financial coaching?
Financial coaching is how do I take what you need to know about the financial system and how do you apply that to your own personal life? And I'm going to guide you through it and give you steps of how to achieve those. It's like when you have a football coach, for example. You may understand all of the technical moves of the sport, but the coach is what puts all of those moves in a way where you can be successful in a play. If you didn't have the coach, then who manages the play? Who manages the team members of the team, of the players? How do you put it all together to achieve the goal of the team, which is to win at the end of the night?
So you're like the Tom Brady of a football team. You're trying to guide the team to a victory. Yeah.
Yes.
And then in Spanish, tú eres como el pastor que predica la nueva de Cristo, salvación.
Amen.
I like it, leading people to a good outcome. That's cool. So I think I'm going to then move a little bit to, any other things you want to say about financial coaching before I move on?
Thank you for the question, because not many people understand financial coaching. It actually is not a term that I learned before 2020. I knew about training and showing others how to do things, but the coaching part it's very needed, but it's hardly used, and it's not understood because it's not something that we talk about on our finances. We always hear about loan officers or mortgage lenders or credit cards, but there isn't a that glue where you bring it all together to make it work for your finances.
Yeah, I say this all the time, Samanda. Look, I have never seen, going back to the whole point about, equity and all this good stuff, I have never seen a person of color of significant financial means be stopped anywhere, whether I've been working in England or Monaco in the United States, anywhere. So the issue truly is income. How do you empower yourself, regardless of how much money you're making? How do you empower yourself to earn money and grow your money? And so to your point, my point of view on this is we have to start with ourselves. How do we take control of our finances? How do we get somebody like a Samanda to teach us the detailed behavioral and systemic adjustments we need to make with our money to use it as a tool, right? I like to tell people all the time, government is not the answer to your problem. The answer to your problem is in the mirror. Look in the mirror and say, how much money do I have? What am I doing with that money today? And so I hope that people that are listening or watching, part of the takeaway is, wait, let me look into financial coaching. There's people with a lot of money who have financial wealth advisors. Wealth advisors, respectfully, don't advise working class or middle class people typically. That's not their financial model. But working class and middle class people need financial coaches to teach them how to change their financial behaviors.
Yeah, it's also a mindset, and our relationship with money is shaped by how we grow up and by those that are around us. For example, you may have someone that grows up in a very environment where they didn't have much.
Yeah.
Now they grow up and they have a full-time job, they're working, and they're buying all the things that they wanted as little, and now they can afford it, and I just want to go buy it. So that's an emotional spending. It's when you grew up with lacking something and now you're old enough to get it, you're going to go get it.
Yeah.
I also call it a mindset, and it was actually really helpful for me to grow up in the Dominican Republic where things were limited. I didn't see myself as being poor.
Yeah.
And growing up in a third world country on a street that was not paved, didn't have electricity for like 5 to 6 hours a day.
Or running water.
Remember those buckets going from the cistern to the bathroom? Yeah. I didn't see myself as poor because we had a home, we have food, water, and clothes to wear, and shoes. So those are necessities that you need to live.
Yeah.
So everything else, and then when I came here, wealth was measured by the amount of material things that you have.
Yeah.
So now it became, I have a home, I have clothes to wear, I have water and food, but then now I want a nice car. I want to have a brand name pair of shoes and a brand name bag. And then you start, if you don't have those things, now you look at yourself, oh, I'm poor because I can't have those. But that's a mindset.
Yeah.
That's a mindset. Just because you don't have a brand name purse doesn't mean that you're poor. Yeah. It's a lifestyle that you want to have. Mm-hmm. So I see myself, as long as I have a home, water, food, clothing, and shoes to wear, everything else comes extra.
Yeah. Everything else is a want, not a need.
If you look at it, yes. I mean, think about it.
Yeah. I've learned that from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. So, Samanda, how do you balance work and life and family?
Well, family comes first to me. I don't balance my family around my work time. And I am so blessed enough now that my work actually involves empowering and helping others. So I don't see it as work. Yeah. But if I have a meeting, if I have a phone call or a Zoom meeting, it needs to be during the times where it does not interfere with my family time. School pickup, school drop off, doctor's appointments. For me, that comes first.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool response. So that leads me to the next question, which is, what does it mean to be a mother?
A lot of amazing things. It's amazing, but also challenging. It's amazing because I get to nurture and love and care for two human beings that since they were born, or since before they were born, rely on my care, of how I talk to them, how I treated them, and what I gave them to eat. So I took that very seriously. That they are my first responsibility. So I said, okay, I need to take care of these two human beings that are under my care. Yeah. And it's just, for me, that's motherhood. Loving, caring, nurturing, and influencing in a positive way these two individuals that are going to become part of society eventually.
Yeah, that's cool. What would you say, Samanda, to young women who are watching, or even young men for that matter, who are watching or listening? What would you say to them about their journey today and what ultimately their journey could mean as either someone who's single or married in their trajectory of life? In other words, if I'm listening and I'm single or married and thinking about my future, looking back, what would you say to them?
Everything happens with a purpose and for a purpose. Yeah. Every experience, every person that you meet, every failed relationship, every hurt has a purpose. And just find what the learning lesson was and what can you learn from it. And because if you think about it, every experience that you go through, it's either to make you stronger, or to learn something that you did or didn't do, and now you know how to do it better next time. Yeah. It's like when you have people that marry more than once, like, you know how the first marriage went through, how the first marriage what failed, what you should have done better, and then you're going to change that approach as you go into your second marriage or your second relationship. So for me, I don't look back and look at experiences and situations in a gray, negative way. I look at, okay, what can I learn from that and from those people that either hurt me or that were around me? And I just take it as a learning lesson and look at the blessing part of it and not at the crushing my heart part of it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. In every lesson, there's opportunities. In every failure, there's opportunity. I love that. How do you balance, your Hispanic roots or Latino roots with American culture? Because you're raising two young sons. You had an incredible life in, 35 years, roughly 40. You have gone from living in a third country to working your tail off to now living an incredible life in so many ways, so many blessings. There's a deep Hispanic side of you. How do you balance that with American culture?
Well, you got to add rice and beans every day. I mean, that's what you eat every day. You eat rice and beans.
Aside from the culinary wonders of Latino food or Dominican cuisine and Puerto Rican cuisine.
I'm actually not going to say it in a way that that I'm promoting Hispanic culture, but I promote in my household and in our children instilled the values that my father and my mother instilled in me.
Yeah.
And growing up in a family, strong family environment where you respect your parents, your elders, family comes first, where you don't say bad words, especially around adults, where moral values are very important. Church is very important. God is very important. Those are values that I instill in my family. Yeah. And I use it as teaching moments when things come up about, I want this, I want that, or I want to play sports and not go to church. So those are the things that I kind of bring up and talk about it with our kids. Yep. Being Hispanic, it's something that comes automatically into our relationship because the way I was brought up. Yeah. And you teach kids differently. Yeah. It's like when you don't argue with your kids, you just tell your kids how things are. Yeah. So it's I want my kids to also understand where I came from. Yeah. Because I don't want someone else to speak for them as part Dominican and part Puerto Rican and part American. Like, I want them to understand where their mother came from, Dominican Republic, and how I grew up. Yeah. And that once you know that, it gives you a different perspective and point of view of who you are as a person here in the United States. That you bring traits and traditions and different way of doing things and saying things because of where your parents came from. And I want them to understand that, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. I mean, what two things. One of the things that I embrace and I love about you is that you have instilled in our entire family, not just our children, beyond our home to our extended family, the crucial importance of family first. That is who you are. That is, you don't deviate for anything or anyone. And that is just permeated through our entire family. Family comes first. It doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter what's happening, family comes first. You plan around family, period. There's no discussion. I love that. And that is, that guides my life now. Family first, even at work with my team. Something happens with my team at work, at home, go home, take care of it. Family first. We'll pick it up. We'll get the rest. The second thing is culture. You continue to remind me that our children have roots in Puerto Rican culture, Dominican culture, and we want to make sure they know about both music, food, traditions, customs, history, but at the same time there's this foundation of American values which all interrelate. They intersect. There's faith in Judeo-Christian values. Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. There's family. Family is stronger than everything. There is hard work. There's perseverance. There's respect. There's honor. And those are things, Samanda, that you just embody for our family. And we are we all have anchored ourselves in that. So I love your answer because that you live that, you permeate that. It's funny, when I see your name in magazines and all these awards you get, etc., for the work you do, the funny part is that people don't understand not just the amount of work that it takes to get there, a lot of work, but underneath all of that, there's an incredible superhuman, Wonder Woman, that pays more attention to her family than, frankly, maybe even more than my mother, my grandmother, right? Because they had 3-4 jobs. And that's a testament to what you do. And so I appreciate what you said, because I think that is fundamental. And it's about the faith, the values we teach our kids: faith, family, grit. And I really love that.
I think that came from not just growing up, but also, as I said at the beginning of our interview, that you learn from experiences.
Yeah.
And not living with my mother at a very young age, it was really traumatic for a young little girl.
Yeah.
So I didn't want my children to feel like they didn't have a mom around.
Yeah.
So I think I overcompensate
Yeah.
for not growing up with my mother. So I just wanted to make sure that they always knew they were loved,
Yeah.
that they're important, that they have a purpose. And I demonstrate that with my actions and the way I say things. So I always make sure that I cook dinner for my kids, that helped with homework, went to field trips, and I wanted to be part of their lives.
Yeah, and I'm here to make sure you didn't become a helicopter mom. I have two more questions for you. The first one is, we talk a lot about faith. What role does faith play in your life?
It's my foundation. Faith to me means believing in something that's higher than me. And to me, that's Jesus Christ. And it's not that I grew up with that, because I actually did not grow up at church. I didn't go to church with my father. My father didn't go to church. My mom didn't go to church. But God was always talked about at home. And my dad had a picture of Jesus, like the one that every Hispanic home had.
Yeah.
So I knew that God existed. But it wasn't until after my mother divorced, her second marriage, my stepfather, that I started asking and searching God. I said, God, I need you in my life. I had an emptiness that I couldn't fill. Nothing could fill it. So I knew that I needed God in my life. So I started going to church and praying more. But for me, it serves as a foundation, and it gives me my true identity. Yeah. Because my identity before was shaped by the opinions of others. And my happiness came from other people. And that's, my happiness does not come from anyone, or my identity does not come by the opinions of others. My identity comes, and my happiness comes from my Creator. And to me, that's God. He's my Heavenly Father, and He gives me my identity. And that's the faith that I have and the foundation I stand on.
Yeah, that's awesome. What an incredible answer. The notion of identity is one that is just present everywhere today in American culture and society. And to anchor yourself that your identity comes from Christ is powerful. I think you're right. A lot of people out there think that their identity comes from who they are, what they do for work, how they dress, what group they're part of. And that's just fundamentally false. It's wrong. It leads you down empty paths. So I love your answer.
Thank you.
That's cool. So then the final question, what is your purpose?
I want to use one of the things that you use, to be a light bearer. I want to exemplify God's character of kindness, of love, understanding, peace, joy, self-control. And how can it be an example to others and for others to find and achieve their purpose? And I just try to do that as I do my best to not just to be an example, but also provide opportunities and a space for others to thrive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Be a light bearer. I love that. Samanda, thank you for agreeing to do this interview. This was not easy, but she did it. And I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for being on Grit Machine DNA. Any final words for listeners or viewers?
Just thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for celebrating family. Thank you for celebrating grit. And thank you for celebrating godly values and family values.
Amen. Well, thank you for being with me today. For those of you out there, Grit Machine DNA podcast, Samanda Morales, check her out. Financial coach, financial advisor, Wonder Woman, and today, my guest. So thank you for joining us. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your week and that this has served to empower you guys to do awesome things. Thanks, everybody.
Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino y pronto nacerá la paz en tu corazón. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino.